we were at 3-5, that was kind of the breaking point where I knew it was getting close. I know everyone else thought it was there, but I agreed it was getting close to there. But once we won that game and went to 4-5 and ended up winning 4 in a row, I thought we had a chance.
Okay, so remember the Niners were 3-5. The 5th loss was their loss to Colt McCoy and the Cardinals. They played the Rams the next week in prime time and won. So what Kyle's saying is, I know everyone thought the time was to put Trey Lance in at 3-5, and I know we were getting close. If the Niners had, instead of beating the Rams to get to 4-5, lost and were 3-6, is Kyle saying he would have started Jimmy against the Jags week 11?
What he was saying, I was close. Maybe it wasn't the Jags game, but he was getting starts at the end of the season. I can just say this, as someone that's in the Niners content business, I'm glad the way it played out because 7-10 season with some Trey starts would not have been as sweet as what we just took in. So I was critical of the way he was handling it, like a lot of people were back then. Now I've pivoted weeks ago. He made the right decision. And, it shows you how, because you texted me the other day, you said that if Tart had caught the ball and the Niners win, Stafford's, the GOAT in a bad way, right? If a couple balls bounce the wrong way and they don't win that Rams game, and let's say instead of making a comeback, they end up losing 30-17 or something, it wouldn't have felt the same. The whole Jimmy vibe, I'd say. Even Jimmy had come so far and quieted so much of the Trey hype that by the time he made that play at the end of the game, I don't feel like a lot of people even blame Jimmy. I think that everyone came to grips with kind of what Jimmy was and appreciated what he brought to the table down the stretch.
I think also partly because even if that ball, let's say, is if he doesn't try and get rid of it, then there's a 4th and 25 is coming up to save the season, which, it's been made before, right? But I think if that was first down, I think there'd be a lot more anger. It would have, it was about to be 4th and 22, right?
And he was running for his life.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but
now,
I the other thing I think we can come to grips with too is the big games down the stretch. I think the Tennessee game and all 3 playoff games and the Rams' final playoff, or essentially was a playoff game. I know they lost the Titans game, but I just don't see how Trey, given what we saw with the Texans, that I think he would have been overwhelmed. It would have been too much for him.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't write off completely that he would. Maybe this is where I think it's, everything's black and white. You won the game or you lost the game. Like to your point on Stafford, so you're either the guy that won or you're the guy that lost. There's no in between. Who knows what happened? Maybe they lose to the Vikings, but they beat the Seahawks. Who knows what happens? But I do think it's interesting for Kyle to say, I know everybody was talking about it, and yes, I was thinking it too, right? He was aware of the conversation going on outside, and you don't have to be listening to every podcast to know. It's pretty obvious what's going on. Sure. By the way, the questions that are being asked to you, if nothing else. But I think what's interesting is if they had lost to the Rams instead of beating the Rams, they would have been then 3-6, right? Well, that is now decision time because you're playing the Jags. So if you play Jimmy against the Jags, you do win that game, right? You're winning that game. So then you're 4-6. So then you're not replacing him against the – you wouldn't play him against the Jags only to play Trey Lance the next week against the Vikings. So they probably had to lose another game after the Rams game. That'd be my guess, based on what he's saying.
It's hard to tell if he's injured and playing shitty. I mean, maybe you start getting 4-6, you just get a little desperate. It's much easier to operate when you're 5-5, right? Or 6-5 or 5-6. But to me, once you get several games under 500 in November, I think you can throw a curveball. It would have been understandable. 4-6 against the Vikings, I think you could have justified it there.
But what sense would it make then to play him against the Jags, right?
Well, because it was an easy landing spot. They were terrible.
No. What sense would it make to play Jimmy? It would, to me, that's the spot you play Trey. Yeah, you don't play Jimmy against the Jags if you're going to replace Jimmy the next week against Minnesota.
Yeah, I think if it's flip-flopped and they get their ass kicked against the Rams, I think he's starting against the Jags. Now, when I'm saying that Trey couldn't have handled those games, I'm talking about one-off situations. Who knows how it goes, like you said, if you get game in, game out, game in, game out, game in, game out, right, and keep improving. I'm talking about just specifically Trey started against the Rams. Trey started against the Packers just with his
Right.
2 starts. Like,
Yeah.
You should naturally, when you're talented, right, think about all the players on the Niners, besides like Bosa, who just immediately was great. Kittle got better and better. Debo, better and better. Ayuk, better and better. Like, it should be a natural progression for talented players. Most guys are not like Trent Williams and Bosa, like, just here to be an all-pro, right? And I would say quarterback probably more than most, because I was thinking about this underrated part, and this is what's so hard, I think, to be a young quarterback is like, because most of the guys beside Mac, well, really the other 3 guys beside Mac, because Trey doesn't fall under this, are kind of got shit on this year. Like, do they suck? I mean, I think every single market, Jags doesn't really have a market, but definitely the Jets and the Bears, there have been several talk radio and podcast conversations of like, are we sure this guy's good? And then I think people loosely have done that with Trevor Lawrence. You are just, I'd say your first year, just listen to like Peyton and Brady talk, just trying to like get your bearings, right? Like, what's the offense? Who am I playing with? Every single week is like a new coordinator, new looks. Like, it's just a lot going on.
Yeah.
And luckily, to me, they really, really benefit from this transition. That Trey got 2 starts. I think 2 is a lot different than fucking none. He got 2 weeks where he got to prepare all week to be a starter. And one was a really good team at the time. I mean, they were like the best team in football. And the Texans, to me, just having the chance to get a second start late in the season, beggars can't be choosers. That was big.
Mm-hmm. I also think
Andy was struggling in that game and then kind of got to flip it, right?
Yeah, and also the experience early in the year where Kyle was thinking about, putting Trey in and then realized he couldn't find places for him. I bet that experience benefits Kyle when it comes to finding a backup quarterback.
Agreed.
Trying to figure out who his backup's going to be. Like, is Nate Sudfeld going to be Trey Lance's backup? I mean, maybe he is. It's hard. It's hard. You don't get to like, you're picking from a small pot, right? When it comes to backup quarterbacks. But
I do think you would like a guy with some experience that you could pay $2-3 million.
Well, it would be ideal, but he's not going to be available to you.
Mariota.
Yeah, but he's just going to be too expensive.
Nick Foles, someone like that. Someone in that
Foles,
mold.
very different stylistically, right? Not mobile.
Trubisky got $3 million to be Josh Allen's backup.
Tyler Bray?
Yeah.